The missile that can't be stopped is finally here. Welcome to the Perseverance Mindset Podcast. So for decades, it was the ultimate, almost mythical goal of military engineers everywhere. A concept that seemed torn from the pages of science fiction. But today, it's a reality. Imagine a weapon, right? Of all these nuclear weapons, ICBs, all of that, all the highly advanced military technology. Now, imagine a weapon that could render a billion-dollar air defense system utterly useless. That is the age we are living in right now. A weapon that flies so fast, and with such terrifying agility that it can't be reliably tracked, let alone intercepted, let alone stopped, let alone actually found. A weapon that can hold any target on the planet at risk, striking in minutes from thousands and thousands of miles away, and collapsing the very idea of strategic distancing. This concept, this ghost in the middle of modern warfare, always sounded like a far-off, hypothetical future with Jetsons and the flying cars, but it's becoming more and more a reality with the rise of AI and the introduction into society. But that future is no longer a hypothetical. It's on the testing range, and it's about to be on the battlefield. The United States, after a period of intense catch-up with many other nations of the world, has made a massive leap forward, signaling a permanent and irreversible shift in the global balance of power militarily. The technology for the missile can't be stopped is now a reality, and it's set to change the rules of modern warfare forever. That's right. What was once thought impossible is now being proven on the launch pad, and the world is about to witness a new chapter in military history, one written at 5 times the speed of sound. So let's get into it. So we want to get into a little bit more here of what this new technology is going to mean and all of that. And welcome again, Perseverance Pioneers. Glad you could join us. For the better part of half of a century, this was being discussed. The pinnacle of military power and might was defined by 2 distinct types of weapons. 2, each with a critical trade-off. Of course, there's going to be positives, pros, and cons, but the global defense was tense but stable cat and mouse type game. You know how if you've ever had a cat, I've had cats my whole life. Sometimes a cat and mouse game, it's back and forth. It's built around this reality. On one side, you had undisputed king of strategic weapons, the IBMC or ICBMs. And it was the highest level of military technology, a weapon that was terrifyingly fast, capable of crossing entire continents in under 30 minutes. ICBMs represented the ultimate deterrent, a symbol of absolute power. But they had a fatal flaw, one baked into the laws of physics, predictability. An ICBM flies on a ballistic trajectory, a massive fixed arc through space dictated by gravity, that pesky thing, gravity. It's like throwing a rock, and once it leaves your hand, you can calculate exactly where it will land. Our entire multi-trillion-dollar defense architecture from the ground up depends on this. From ground-based mid-course defense GMD to the Navy's AEGIS destroyers was built to do just that. Calculate the predictable path and launch an interceptor to meet that path. It's an amazing feat, but one that relies heavily and entirely knowing on the bullet's path. And on the other side of the trade-off were cruise missiles. They were a sneaky alternative. They might not have many flaws as what we've just discussed, but what they lacked in raw speed, they made up for with cunning achievements. Flying low to the ground, hugging the terrain to stay under the radar, they could change their approach and strike from unexpected directions, multilaterally. For decades, this was the fundamental choice in missile strategy, and that's all changed today. You could have the globe spanning the speed of an ICBM with its predictable arc, or you could have the terrain-hugging agility of a cruise missile. At a much slower pace, of course, going in terms of the Holy Grail, the weapon that everyone knew would shatter this paradigm, was something that could combine the two. The blistering speed of the ballistic missile with the unpredictability, maneuverability of a cruise missile. This combination of what was just unreal today, and the U.S. has reached that level. Now, this combination is deadly. And defenses were never fully designed to do both. And for decades, it remained basically theoretical nightmare. It was put in movies, it was discussed, missiles and things that can't be even tracked or sought or found. The era of predictable missile defense is ending. That's out the door. That's gone. The shield that we have spent generations building is being challenged like never before, right before our very eyes, to be frank and to be honest. Now, this breakthrough of America's hypersonic, let's call it an awakening. For a while, it looked like the United States was falling behind with all the initiatives out there in the world, changes of presidents, changes of policy. News reports pointed to a worrying trend. Russia and China were parading their new hypersonic weapons around, claiming they had fielded systems the West couldn't counter. We haven't really talked about it or discussed, but we're going to have another upcoming podcast about that. In Russia, it's what's called the dead hand. So even if the U.S. was to strike Russia and its whole entire grid was down and nobody was there to pull the button to launch back at the U.S., the dead hand would automatically strike once it actually censored that a missile had struck. It would immediately launch back. They call it the dead hand. But the U.S., meanwhile, was hitting a series of public testing setbacks. Again, with testing and business, everybody knows this very well. Setback things take longer, leading many to question if it can close the gap. But behind the scenes, a quiet, relentless push was underway, and it has finally culminated in a critical breakthrough. A key part of this story is the AGM-1838, or the ARRW, Air Launched Rapid Response Weapon. After a rocky start with several failed tests that put the program's future in doubt, the U.S. Air Force revived the program, recognizing its potential, but again, acknowledging the setbacks. While not yet an operational weapon, the ARRW program was the crucible that forged America's modern hypersonic expertise, using that same experience and journey to cultivate this one. The data collected from its tests, both the successes and the failures, was invaluable in this effort and allowing engineers to master the intense physics of hypersonic flight. You won't see me doing physics. It's just the way it is. So what does that mean? What does a system like this represent? Imagine a B-52 bomber, an aircraft carrier over 70 years old, circling the international airspace thousands of miles from a target, releases a weapon. That ignites its rocket and screams to the edge of space. And then magic happens. A sleek glide vehicle detaches and begins its descent, accelerating to speeds over Mach 5, more than 3,800 miles per hour. You heard me right, more than 3,800 miles per hour. From that launch point, it can cover 1,000 miles in less than 15 minutes. 5, 10, 15, 15 minutes. But this isn't just it's a speeding bullet. It's not like Wile E. Coyote. It's not just that. It re-enters the atmosphere, performs extreme maneuvers, and weaves through the sky, rendering any pre-calculated interception useless. And by the time an enemy sensors detect that threat itself, it's only minutes from impact with an unpredictable trajectory. The defense system has almost no time to react, no way to calculate a firing solution. This is the checkmate capability that the U.S. has reached, that the U.S. hypersonic programs are now bringing to life and to the table, an awakening that has set the stage for what comes next. So what I do want to talk about next is the Dark Eagle, the Army's unstoppable spear. While the Air Force was proving the concept of air-launched hypersonic flight, U.S. Army was out there doing as they usually do, excellent things, and was working on an even more strategically significant piece of the puzzle. If the ARRW was the difficult learning process, then the Army's long-range hypersonic weapon, LRHW, nicknamed Dark Eagle, is the tip of the spear, poised to become the first operational hypersonic missile in the American war chest or arsenal. Dark Eagle is a ground-based truck launch system designed to give the Army unprecedented long-range strike capability. After navigating the technical hurdles that have been going on, all the setbacks that have had with this project to such revolutionary technology, the program has hit its stride, and it's taken that stride relentlessly with progress. The Army is now pushing to the field the first full battery Dark Eagle missiles by the end of the fiscal year of this year. This represents a pivotal moment for warfare and the history of warfare, moving from a prototype to a fully operational weapon system delivered to the soldiers by the end of this year. This first unit slated to receive this game-changing capability is the 1st Domain Task Force at Joint Base Lewis McChord. What makes the Dark Eagle so formidable? Each battery consists of 4 massive mobile launchers, making the system hard to find and target. The missile itself is a marvel, featuring very common hypersonic glide body developed with the Navy, and as stated, range over 1,725 miles, 2,775 kilometers. From a location like Guam, a Dark Eagle battery could hold targets deep within the Pacific's first island chain at risk from Eastern Europe. Then it could reach critical military targets inside Russia within minutes. This is groundbreaking. This weapon fundamentally changes the geometry of the battlefield. A recent deployment of a Dark Eagle launcher system to Australia for the Talesman Sabre exercise marked a historic milestone. While it wasn't a live firing, the deployment itself was the true message. It proved the United States could transport, set up, and command this advanced system, this heavily advanced system, thousands of miles from home. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Admiral Samuel Paparo called it a significant achievement. The message to the allies and adversaries was clear. The United States isn't just developing hypersonic weapons, it's preparing to deploy them if needed. Peace through strength, first, foremost, and always. So this technology is reshaping the world as we speak. What you're learning about here is the front line of a new global security reality. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on how military technology is changing our future, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. We talk about everything on this podcast, from business to finance to health to wellness. We bring leaders on all the time to talk about their interests and what shapes them as catalysts of change in the world of today. You won't want to miss anything we have coming up. And boy, we have some great guests lined up for the rest of this year and going forward. So getting back into it. So what actually makes a weapon hypersonic? I know we've talked about it, Perseverance pioneers, but what actually makes a weapon hypersonic? And many of our listeners out there are probably much, much more knowledgeable than me on this topic. Now, it's not just about speed. It's traveling at Mach 5 or faster than roughly 38 miles per hour. This is a huge part of it. The real revolution is in the mastering of extreme physics. You won't see me teaching it anytime soon. At those speeds, the air pressure and friction are so intense that they create a sheath of searing hot plasma around the vehicle, which temperatures that can be compared to the surface of the sun. Get your sunblock, because you might get a sunburn. Engineering a craft that can survive and remain controllable is the core challenge here with building these weapons. There are 2 main types of hypersonic weapons, and the U.S. is pushing hard on both. The first is the technology behind the Dark Eagle and the ARRW, which is the Hypersonic Glide Vehicle, or HGV. The concept is elegantly brutal. When it actually works and it's on target, it's a conventional rocket that boosts HGV to a high altitude at the edge of space. We're just breaking barriers all over the place. Once the rocket falls away, the HGV, a sleek wedge-shaped vehicle, begins to glide. But it doesn't just fall. It uses aerodynamic shape to skip under the upper atmosphere like a stone across a pond. Using small control surfaces, it can make sharp, unpredictable maneuvers, keeping defense systems guessing until the final moments of impact. It combines the speed of a ballistic missile with an agility no defense has ever had to face. The second type is the hypersonic cruise missile. Now, this version is powered the whole way by an advanced engine called a scramjet. A normal jet engine sucks in air and it slows down, mixes with fuel, and ignites it. Scramjet is so powerful that it uses the missile's own incredible forward speed to compress the air, meaning the air flowing through the engine is always supersonic. Groundbreaking technology, all these advancements. We are living in a time of true advancements. It's not just about AI, it's about us getting more knowledgeable and using our technology smarter and faster. It's like a lightning match in a hurricane and keeping it lit. An incredible engineering feat that the U.S. is developing with its hypersonic attack cruise missile, HACM program. The unstoppable factor comes from combining that raw speed with radical maneuverability. Traditional missile defenses have between 20 and 30-minute warning for an ICBM. A hypersonic weapon can shrink that window to just a few minutes. So you're talking from 20 to 30 to only a few moments. While its erratic flight path makes it nearly impossible to intercept with current technology, you can't hit a target if you don't know where it's going. And that is the groundbreaking innovation that we are dealing with seeing. Now, this global race, we've been talking about on this podcast the financial Cold War and the AI arms race. And we have an upcoming episode coming up with our great guest, Michael Pelch, who is our cybersecurity expert, to explore this topic further. But the United States is not developing these weapons in a vacuum. The rush to development is a direct response to a global arms race that's already in full swing. Are we in a new Cold War? I know we're in an age of a new financial Cold War. That's what we've been saying. America's progress with Dark Eagle isn't the first shot in this race. It's the critical shot that proves the U.S. is now a formidable competitor in a contest previously dominated by Russia and China, and we're getting back in the game. For years, Russia and China have been vocal about its hypersonic programs, and they've been vocal about claiming to have deployed the Avian Guard HGV and using the air-launched missiles in the conflict in Ukraine. And whether these systems perform exactly as advertised is debatable. But their existence created a perceived gap that the Pentagon has been working to tirelessly close. Meanwhile, China has engaged in a massive state-funded push for hypersonic domination. We talk about the AI arms race, and wow, it's the race to the top with AI between the US and China, and who will get there first. And this hypersonic dominance has already fielded the DF-17, a missile designed to carry a HGV. This weapon poses a clear threat to US naval assets and bases in the Pacific. Even more alarmingly, China tested a fractional orbital bombardment system, where a hypersonic vehicle circled the globe before striking a target, demonstrating a capability to evade U.S. defenses, even the more terrifying, which are mostly aimed at over the North Pole. And this is the world America's hypersonic programs have woken up to. That's why we have to adjust. The development and target development of Dark Eagle is not an act of aggression, but it's an act of restoration. It's meant to reestablish a strategic balance between us and our adversaries. The balance that was at risk of eroding over years. For years, America's adversaries believed they held a trump card. The fielding of U.S. hypersonics sends a powerful message to them that America's back in the race, and any advantage an adversary thought they had over the United States is gone, because we're racing to go back to the top through peace, through strength. Now, this is all drawing basically a ripple effect. It's now redrawing the global balance for power. The arrival of the operational hypersonic weapons creates massive ripple effects across global security, as you might imagine. The world is now a much smaller and potentially more dangerous place than ever before. First, strategic depth is evaporating. High-value assets like aircraft carriers, command hubs, once protected by layers of defense, are now vulnerable to strikes due to all the advancements in AI and advancements in technology that arrive only within minutes of warning. This ability to hold any target at risk with a conventional warhead dramatically raises the stakes of the game, making the cost of aggression a catastrophic from the opening moments of any conflict that might involve these weapons. This new reality also carries a deeply concerning risk: accidental escalation. So we're building all these hypersonic weapons. We're doing these things that can do unimaginable damage, that can do an irrehensible harm, and just destroying people, destroying nations, wiping people off the face of the earth. What about an accidental escalation? The old Cold War paradigm had one saving grace: time. A detected ICBM gave leaders up to 30 minutes to verify the threat and make a decision. Hypersonic weapons compress that timeline to maybe 5 to 6 minutes, and we're talking today. A leader whose sensors detect an incoming hypersonic launch as moments to decide. It is a conventional strike on a military base or a nuclear one aimed at a city. This is a pressure cooker environment, drastically increases the chance of a catastrophic mistake. Naturally, this offensive revolution has sparked a frantic race for defenses and military buildup. The Pentagon is funding a development of a new network of space-based sensors, like the Hypersonic and Ballistic Tracking Space Sensor, HBTSS, to provide global persistent tracking of these weapons. The next step is an interceptor, the glide phase interceptor, designed to be agile enough to meet the basic hypersonic threat head-on. But these defensive technologies are are still in their infancy, in their early years, if not decades from being fully reliable. But we're already there. We're in the testing phase. We're in the trial and error parts of these weapons. For the more foreseeable future, the offensive is the king and the driver's seat we all want to be in. So we're standing at the dawn of a new age of warfare. The science fiction concept of a weapon that moves at impossible speeds and outmaneuvers any defense is no longer a fantasy. It's a tangible, powerful reality. And it's taking shape at military test ranges. The United States, after a period of intense development, has now finally firmly entered this critical race. The successful tests have paved the way for a new generation of weapons, and planned deployment of the U.S. Army's Dark Eagle system are not just footnotes in military history. These are things that are going to define history going forward. They are the opening salvos. They are the opening greetings of a new strategic era. The old rules of distance, time, and defense have been shattered. Those are out the window. Speed fused with agility is the new currency of military might and power. And this isn't the end of military innovation, but the explosive beginning of a much more faster, complex, and profoundly more dangerous chapter in the story of military might and global power. And this age of the unstoppable missile is finally here, and the world will never be the same. So what do you think about this new era? Is this the development of weapons like Dark Eagle necessary to is it a necessary step to ensure stability? Or is it a catalyst for more volatile arms race? Are we in a new Cold War? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this deep dive valuable, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. We'll continue to bring you stories behind the technology that is defining our world. This is John Zadzura signing off from the Perseverance Mindset Podcast. Have a great evening.